Chapter 6, Dark Enough, Tuesday, November 14th, 2006, Interim, Detention. Letter addressed to Principal Leonard Brodsky, Aptekissic Junior High School, 9978R and Rand Road, Deerbrook Park, Illinois, 60090. From Rabbi Avel Salt, Principal, Judaic Studies, the Solomon Schechter School, 2911 West Albion Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60645. September 1st, 2006. Dear Leonard, I want, first of all, to thank you for admitting Guri and Maccabee to Aptekissic, and secondly, to apologize for not having had to cut short our conversation after services last week. I'm not sure if you saw her there or not, but my daughter Esther was sitting on the stair beneath the one on which we stood, and, being yet another great admirer of the boy in question, not to mention a habitual eavesdropper, though this is no thing to complain about. After all, what better indication of a child's love for you than her belief that when what you have to say to others is actually interesting? Baruch Hashem? She became very sad at Gurian's mention. She misses him at school, and she'd been tugging at the hem of my pant leg and whispering as if in prayer, "Please, let's go. Please, can we?" For all but the entire duration of our overly brief dialogue. So while I'm already at it here, with the gratitude and apologies, I'll use the occasion to address as best I can the concerns you expressed. I'll begin with the issue of the weapons, as it seems to be, very understandably, your greatest source of unease. I can't remember if I'd mentioned it, but over the summer months, the afternoons Gurian didn't spend gallivanting in our backyard with Esther and her sisters. He spent in my study reading Chumash and Talmud. So I've had a number of opportunities to discuss with him what he was thinking when he wrote and delivered those instructions of his last spring. Before we go into that, though, you must first understand that when I initially contacted you about Gurian, I was in no way exaggerating his peculiar intelligence, nor the promise it entails. It is my belief that, if given the proper chance, Gurian will become the foremost Jewish scholar of his generation, if not his epoch. I recognize that the magnitude of such a claim might seem to some who do not know the boy cartoonish, even reckless, but an anecdote in its defense. On Gurian's first day at Solomon Schechter, he was a kindergartner, 5 years old, and without any capacity to read Hebrew. He approached me in the hallway and said, "Because you are the principal of Judaic Studies, I would like to ask you about the importance of truth." He spoke that way when he was small, like a boy with maybe a governess. Surely a summer villa somewhere coastal in Western Europe. Now he speaks differently, with character. In any case, truth is very important, I told him. He said, "I know, except sometimes it is less important than it is at other times, and this is what I want to ask you about. The matter, however, is a private one." The matter, I thought. So that's how it is. Queen's English or not, I was confident he would tell me about having stolen something or hurt somebody, only to ask if he should be honest about it. And then I'd tell him, yes, be honest. That is not what happened. In my office, he sat cross-legged in the chair on the other side of my desk and said, "My mother has a colleague with a baby named Isaac. We went there yesterday to Isaac's house for a barbecue. We ate steak because I like steak, and the steak that afternoon was delicious. After the steak, while our father smoked cigarettes, our mothers cleared the table and brought out bowls of ice cream. Isaac was laying on a blanket in the grass next to the table, and in the middle of my first bite of ice cream, a glinting in my eye came from his direction, and I turned and saw that he held a steak knife. It must have fallen off the table when our moms cleared the dishes. It might have been my steak knife. It might have been anyone's. I don't think it matters. But I saw this baby Isaac holding this very sharp knife, playing with it. He was making the sun reflect itself onto his chest and belly. He was wearing only a diaper. It was very beautiful to Isaac how the sun was being reflected, the way he could bend his wrist to push the sun around his body or turn it off and change the size of it, and how it would multiply in number when he caught it on more than one tooth of the serration at once. And probably the knife felt to him different than anything he'd ever held before, because I know Isaac's parents would never let him play with dangerous metal things. And so it was very sad to me that it was a knife, since he could accidentally stab himself in the eye, or cut himself on the hand or the belly, or stab himself in any of those places with it, or cut his forehead, or even if he just pricked himself just a little and then dropped the knife, or dropped the knife on himself, picking himself up, it would be harmful. I jumped off the bench and snatched the knife away. I did it very quickly. All those thoughts I said I was thinking about, the reflections on his belly and how he could hurt himself, I remember thinking them. But it was impossible because they take so much time to say. And it was really as soon as I saw the knife in his hands that I took it from him. Isaac has big eyes, even for a baby, and they became even bigger when I took the knife. And then he started crying. And I said to his dad, because it happened so fast that no one could make out exactly what the situation was, maybe it looked like I made him cry on purpose, I said, he had a knife, and I saved him. And then my father, who was sitting next to me, picked up his ice cream teaspoon, reached around to me, and handed it down to Isaac, who grabbed it and stopped crying immediately. Which is what I should have done, the teaspoon. My father is smart. He tricked the baby. The baby thought the spoon was the knife. The spoon was smooth and metal, and it could reflect the sun onto his belly. And I knew, and I know that was the right thing to do, to trick the baby. And it is not what I did was bad. What I did was very good. It is very good in a left-handed way to make a knife from a baby, because babies can be harmed by knives they're playing with. So it is a very clear kind of justice to take a knife away from a baby. Only, there's very little love in taking the knife away. And I do love Isaac. He's a very funny baby. But even if I didn't love him, even if he were someone else's baby who I didn't know and didn't love, I would have taken the knife away. So it really had nothing to do with love, what I did. The spoon, though, giving them it, that is out of love, unless it's just to make him stop crying because the crying annoys you. But like I said, in the best circumstances, I would have given him the spoon myself before he even noticed the knife was missing from his hand, and he would have never started crying or even felt like crying. So here's where the question of the importance of truth comes up. The right thing to do is to balance justice and love. And giving Isaac the spoon after taking the knife away is one of the most balanced actions I can imagine. But you end up tricking the baby when you do that. The spoon is not the knife. And you can say that the baby didn't know the knife was a knife to begin with. And so there's no trick. But that's cheap, because it was a knife to begin with. And tricks are always about what the mark doesn't know. So you're tricking the baby. And if you say you're not tricking it, if you say you're not tricking the baby, you're tricking yourself. There's no way to get around it. And tricks are dishonest, and there's no way to get around that. And tricking the baby is the right thing to do, and there's no way to get around that. So truth is, and therefore must be, less important than some other things. And there are some obvious ones, like life. Like if someone I don't know, I don't like very much, puts a gun to my head and says, I will kill you if you don't say that you love me. I have to say I love them, but that is easy to figure out. It is worth lying to save a life. But why is it worth lying to Isaac about a knife that's already been taken from him? Maybe you say to save him pain or injury, but so then how much pain and how much injury? Because what if it's an adult? Is it different for adults? They can take a little more pain than a baby, maybe. What if it's an older kid? I'm an older kid, and if I found out you lied to me to save some pain, I would trust you less, and things would fall apart between us. At least I think that's how it is. I am 5, and I am sure there are things that I don't know about exceptions. But either way, since yesterday, whenever I think about Isaac the baby, I start thinking about Isaac, the father of Jacob. How, when Isaac is blind and dying, Jacob glues the goat fur to his chest and pretends it's Esau, who is hairy. So Isaac will give him the blessing that is Esau's birthright. Jacob tricks his own father. But it is definitely the right thing to do. It has to be. Esau was mean. He secretly sold his birthright to Isaac for a bowl of soup years earlier, and then when the time came, he tried to get the blessing anyway. And if Jacob didn't trick Isaac, we probably wouldn't even be here. There'd be no Israelites. And then on top of it, I read a commentary that said that Isaac knew he was being tricked. It was that he wanted to give Jacob the blessing, that he was only pretending to be tricked. But if Isaac was only pretending, then who is he pretending for? Because it seems to me like if he was pretending for Hashem, like he was tricking Hashem, and that Hashem, like himself, be tricked. It's very confusing to me. And what I'm asking you is, what other things specifically are more important than truth? And also why? And is it possible to trick God? And if it's possible to trick God, does that mean it's okay to trick God? Stuttering, I asked Gurion to come back later to let me think about his questions. The answer to the simpler of which, to my mind at least, have to do with the tension between the abstract nature of the truth and the fact that truth actually functions physically and in variable ways, no less, such that one of the truths about the knife is that it was a vehicle of the sun's reflection, as was the spoon, and that what the baby became absent about when Gurion took his knife was the loss of his sun-reflecting vehicle. And so what soothed the baby was the acquisition of a new sun-reflecting vehicle. The knife was not, for the baby, ever functioning as a piercing or sawing instrument, thank God. And the spoon was not, for the baby, ever functioning as a scooping instrument or a knife. So what soothed the baby was the acquisition of a new sun-reflecting vehicle. There was never good reason to believe the baby was tricked. There is no good reason to believe, as Gurion believed, that the baby believed the spoon was the knife. Knifeness or spoonness to us distinguished, respectively, by the properties: ability to saw and pierce, ability to swoop. If even the baby was aware of knifeness and spoonness, were likely irrelevant to the baby. So where's the trick? Nowhere, I imagine.